shape measurement strategy for a brand, and it's the tee up for this is that, let me skip all this. Let's start from here probably. Okay, this the setup for this is that as your brands evolve, right? As if your agency, if you're helping your brands evolve, what you'll find is that the advanced measurement capability that they need at different parts of their evolution is reasonably different. Okay. If you introduce too much complexity and sophistication too early, it kind of becomes too much of a burden, and then the whole practice collapses on its own weight. And if you don't introduce enough when they need it, then you kind of leave it stunted, like you leave the brand stunted looking for more sophistication and inquiry when you're not able to, right? So what does that look like, right? So so if you're a nascent brand, if you just got going, right? If you're just a brand new brand in the last couple of years, you maybe a year or 12 months into the making, honestly, you don't really need advanced attribution, okay? In the last click numbers coming out of platform attribution and web analytics, Google Analytics, for example, is more or less what you need to like get yourself off the ground, right? Any kind of really advanced attribution work tends to be an overkill for this particular level of maturity. Okay, what you do want to do is introduce a triangulation analysis practice into your brand or your agency when you're supporting that brand, so that you can now begin to understand and interpret Google Analytics data versus platform attribution data, and then can compare and contrast and make decisions with both data sets. Now, knowing that as you evolve, these data sets will kind of go separate, and the gap between them will widen as you go. But at least you know that, you know it's coming. But a lot of times early enough, you can still use the data for many 6 months, a year into the business. You'll find that both of these data sets are plenty for you to be able to work with to begin with. Okay. Now, I can also see that you will see that as I'm building it, I'm purposefully calling out tech and practice as two separate line items here. You'll see that we'll keep stacking on tech. And as you stack on tech, we're making an assessment that you have to upgrade your triangulation practice to account for the new tech and the new data and the new measurement you're introducing to the business. But when you start with the triangulation analysis practice, it's much easier to accommodate new things, new information. And maybe when Eli talks about his piece, he can probably talk about how he is incorporating. He started with just last click data, then he introduced multi-touch attribution, then post-purchase surveys, then he's doing testing and marketing mix modeling. So you can see, you can kind of maybe quiz him on how he thinks about evolving the tech and the practice together, right? But think of them as two separate pieces, right? One is the tech, one is the practice, and you're evolving both instead of lockstep. But thinking of them as two separate competencies really helps you understand how to build them together. All right. Now, as you get a little further, I'm giving a little bit of a sort of a approximation as to where brands are in their evolution. In this particular case, about $5, $4, $10 million in GMV, you start getting to the point where you say, you know what, these numbers are getting squishy. They're kind of moving apart from each other. I need something else to get a little bit more dialed in estimate of channel performance. That's when you get into post-purchase surveys, right? And you'll see how Eli kind of takes post-purchase survey data and turns them into multipliers. Very much, he treats the post-purchase survey almost like a test, and then he uses that to kind of calculate multipliers and uses those multipliers to generate reporting. Now, what you'll also find is that in the early stages of a brand, you can probably just do Google Sheets reporting, right? Plenty enough. And most brands seem to be very comfortable with Google Sheets. Any kind of advanced BI is sort of an overkill at this point. So it keeps you nimble. You're still probably investing in just a handful of channels. There's plenty of data, plenty of room for you to grow here. So this is probably where you'll end up with when you're kind of still in the early stages, still emerging brand, right? When you get a little bit further, as you get to like $20 million GMV, $15-20 million GMV is kind of when you start kind of getting to the point where you're probably investing in more channels. You probably got Klaviyo for email or some sort of email practice. You have a retention marketing budget as well. You have enough returning existing customers you're marketing to them as well. Now it gets a little bit more squishy, right? Now you don't know if the conversions to Vishnu's question yesterday, how many of my conversions are repeat conversions versus new conversions, new customer conversions versus repeat. It starts getting more and more squishy. And then you probably say, you know what, I probably should do some testing, right? And that's when you do the very first platform lift test, or your very first geo test or whatnot, to kind of get a little bit more of a crisper understanding of what this channel is doing for you. And you can take both of these and translate this into multipliers. Maybe you believe the test more than the post-purchase survey for certain channels, but maybe for certain other channels you haven't yet tested. So you're probably going to end up using the post-purchase survey going forward, right? So now you're kind of adding more to it, and then you're kind of using all of this data, with your triangulation analysis practice, translating them into multipliers and making investment decisions based on them. Now you get to a certain point, you'll be like, well, there's a lot of data. At this point, you're now $30-40 million in GMV, is probably spending about $6-8 million in media, maybe more. You have a lot more channels now, right? You can see here, let me just take these out here. There's a lot more channels now. You have a lot more channels. Now it's a data problem, not just the number of amount of investment you're making. Now you have multiple sources of data. It's just like trying to get all of these in one place, and having good data quality, data governance becomes a huge issue, right? Here is where adding a data governance layer here, so that you understand, is my data complete? Is my data accurate, right? Is it timely, right? Am I looking at, yesterday's data? I'm looking at last week's data. What am I looking at right here across all these channels? And having a governance layer to have data quality checks in place really is a lot of headache sort of removal for you, right? It's a big part of analysis here at this particular stage. And then still using multipliers. Maybe at this point, you probably need something like a Tableau or a Looker or some BI tool to kind of get more sophisticated reporting. You probably have a few more people in the organization to distribute reporting to and whatnot, right? Now when you add at this point, as you can get closer to the $100 million mark, it becomes important for you to actually introduce a media mix model. Now you probably have more channels. You probably need a data warehouse to kind of house all the data. The multipliers probably need to live in a much more of a robust environment. And then having all of these turn into a system of multipliers from multiple channels in time varying fashion. And then having that all report out into a dashboard is probably the way to go at this particular point in time, right? Now, I'm taking some creative liberties in the brand stage, and what you need at different stages. It may be sort of, obviously you will have to, as if you're consultants in the space, like Savita needs to be, or like Shreya, you and Vishnu for Open Store, you will kind of look at this and be like, well, probably not, and I probably have to, take this, and probably I needed to be much more early because of a different situation, whatever. But the idea gives you an approximation of what the different pieces need to go into place at different levels of sophistication, and you can pick and choose which pieces make sense for you in the specific context that you may be working in. Okay. All right. Vishnu's question yesterday, new versus returning orders, a huge problem in the industry, right? Now, obviously, all of us want to be able to report new and returning orders out of the box. Very few platforms support it out of the box. And also, you can set up custom events to have new and returning orders, but you have to force your customers to log in and identify themselves as an existing customer. When a customer has her credit card out and about to buy something with you, you don't want to introduce one more layer of anything. So you want to get out of the way of giving you money. So most brands don't do that. And therefore, when we pass data into platforms, we just say, hey, here is an order, right? Now, it turns out that becomes a huge problem on the other side. And now we don't know new versus returning customer order breakdown. And we have to do all kinds of monkey flips to understand new versus returning breakdown. But I don't see a way to solve it, right? This is kind of an outstanding problem in the industry, and we talked through how we might estimate new versus returning breakdowns using the approaches we talked about in sensitivity analysis. Okay, and then we talk about upper funnel conversions. So this is best practices for tracking. If you can track new versus returning, absolutely do. If you should almost always track multiple conversions in the funnel, right? The very final transaction, but also put add to cart tracking and leads tracking, or registration for email tracking, whatever it is. All those kind of events kind of further up the funnel in your site, and becomes incredibly valuable as you're building models. Very often, what you'll find is that you're trying to drive awareness and consideration and whatnot, and you might want multiple signals in the buying process that you can use to build models off of, and you can understand if media is driving what part of the funnel in your site, and allows you to really kind of like build a more full funnel marketing strategy for the brand you're working with, right? Another big area of breakage we find is that when you track events, when you track conversion events or upper funnel events on Meta versus Yelp versus Google, I can tell you more often than not, I find that they are tracking the same event in different places, right? Meaning that a thank you page has probably 3 events right there. Sometimes you're tracking, just before the thank you page as opposed to after the thank you page. And so the events are not one-to-one anymore. What you see as conversions in Roku versus Meta versus Google are slightly different. And so you end up with a lot of you have to reconcile what they mean. It's a huge pain point, and the conversion rates are not apples to apples, and you can't use them in an apples to apples fashion. If you can fix those things, it goes a long way in creating more